Tonight, exemption for the elderly, but pool owners to be slugged under tough new water restrictions.
An Ipswich man who pleaded for help to find his wife to stand trial for her murder.
Banks on notice after taking $9 billion in fees and charges.
And Sophie Delezio's remarkable recovery continues.
Live from Melbourne, this is 7 News.
With Rod Young and Kay McGrath.
Good evening. Residents unable to carry buckets of water will get an exemption when hosing is banned in southeast Queensland from next month. But pool owners may be forced to pay hundreds of dollars more under a plan pushed by Campbell Newman.
Until now, pool owners have escaped tough water restrictions in southeast Queensland. But Brisbane's Lord Mayor wants that to end. He's asked all 12 councils to debate a new proposal before Level 3 restrictions come into force on June 13.
People who own pools would be required within, say, 60 days to go and get a pool cover and actually have it on their pool if they wish to continue drawing water from the mains supply.
They cost around $1,000 from pool shops. In Brisbane, they're subsidised by council. An average pool costs $315 to cover.
You have to pay to enjoy that lifestyle.
They raise the temperature of the water by up to 8 degrees. Fine in winter, uncomfortable in summer.
I don't think it's right for council to impose so much upon us.
The Mayor's also agreed to exemptions for people with a medical certificate, stating they can't water their gardens by bucket.
They'll be allowed to water their plants by hose for 1 hour a week.
Barbara and Peter Hughes built their home and garden in the 1960s. 4 decades later, it's dying. And they say 1 hour of watering between 4 and 5 p.m. on the weekend won't bring it back.
We're pensioners, and we just can't afford to replace everything. So I think it'll be a little bit lonely, a lonely garden.
Gold Coast residents will be allowed to hose down driveways and cars over the next 2 weekends. Mayor Ron Clark says the Hinds Dam is too full. The autumn clean-up will help protect against flooding.
We're still 97%, so we should have in our dam only 90% because the top 10% we need as a cushion for any really heavy rainfall event.
But the city still draws water from Brisbane. Ron Clark says his wet weekend will use just 1 million litres of water from the Wivenhoe network, enough to half fill an Olympic-sized swimming pool.
We can't afford to lose any water at the moment.
Michael Coombs, 7 News.
Before Gold Coast residents get to use any of that water, millions of litres went to waste this afternoon. A water main burst in Surfers Paradise, flooding an intersection and creating a whirlpool. Engineers are tonight still trying to shut the pipes down. The repair work could leave a number of high-rises without water for hours.
A tragedy waiting to happen. That's how an investigation has described the deaths of 5 people when a Department of Immigration vessel sank in the Torres Strait. The boat was unsafe, had no charts, and those on board didn't know how to use the outboard motors or satellite phone.
Even before leaving Saibai Island, the Malusara had been experiencing engine trouble and minor flooding. But the skipper of the 6-week-old boat could not have known how unseaworthy it was when he left for Badu Island with 4 others on board. The Australian Transport Safety Bureau has found design and construction of the boat was deficient, allowing water into the hull.
Malusara did not meet the basic buoyancy and stability standards for either recreational or commercial vessels.
Malusara was one of 6 Dimia boats made by Cairns company Subsea Explorer. The ATSB report has found, despite declaring the boat met Australian standards, Dimia did not engage an independent marine surveyor to monitor the building or to survey the vessels after they were completed. The Immigration Department left oversight of construction and testing to the builder. Peter Foley says independent tests would have identified the basic faults.
This was a tragedy waiting to happen.
The report also found the skipper had not been adequately trained, but the department is quick to put the spotlight on Subsea.
There are questions to be asked of the designer and the builder.
2 immigration officials, 2 women and a 4-year-old girl were on board the Malusara when it went missing during heavy fog on October 15 last year. The body of single mother Flora Enosa was the only one ever found. Nicola Bates, 7 News.
A Redcliffe woman is demanding answers about the mysterious death of her husband after an ambulance he was travelling in crashed on the way to hospital. Ian Stewart's condition deteriorated dramatically. The coroner is now investigating his treatment at 2 hospitals.
How When Kate Stewart awoke on Monday, her husband was suffering chest pains, so she called an ambulance.
He walked out to the stretcher.
They live on the same road as the hospital, just 2 kilometres away, but the ambulance was involved in a collision while travelling with lights and sirens.
No one told us that that Ian was badly hurt in the accident or anything. You think he's in an ambulance, nothing can really happen. They're pretty solid vehicles.
Ian was a happy but not healthy man. He'd had a heart bypass last year, a previous stroke and diabetes. Ian was admitted to Redcliffe Hospital on Monday. On Tuesday, he was transferred to Prince Charles, and on Wednesday, he died.
Somewhere along the line, his lung was punctured after he left this house. So his heart failed first. His lungs failed second. His kidney failed third. My man was dying in front of me, one organ at a time, after 27 years of marriage.
Yesterday's autopsy could not determine the cause of death. Kate received a letter from the coroner today and had a friend read it to her.
My role is to ascertain the cause and circumstances of the death.
Queensland Health says it's unable to discuss individual cases.
Who did what to him? What happened? Where did his lung get punctured?
Peter Doherty, 7 News.
An Ipswich man has been committed to stand trial for the murder of his wife. The day before his arrest, Gary Mills made a public appeal to track down her killer.
Last July, Gary Mills pleaded for help to find out what happened to his wife, Jolene. He claimed she hadn't come home from a night out with friends.
Anything like little detail that can help out with just finding Jo, please.
Hours later, detectives raided the couple's house at Ripley, collecting forensic evidence. Scientific Officer Acting Senior Sergeant Darren Smith told Ipswich Magistrates Court he tested 7 items and identified blood on 6, and that he'd matched the jagged edge of a piece of tape found on Jolene's waist with the tear mark on a roll of tape found in the couple's home. The prosecution tendered phone records, security pictures and statements from 140 witnesses.
The court has also heard from the pathologist who performed the autopsy. He testified the mother of 2 was probably smothered to death.
Gary and Jolene met at an Ipswich high school and had been married for a decade. Jolene's mother sat in the back of the courtroom as her son-in-law hung his head in the dock.
Very tough. You couldn't imagine what it's like for somebody to lose their daughter.
Angela Cox, 7 News.
A drowning tragedy in the Adelaide Hills has taken the lives of 2-year-old twins. The brother and sister wandered off last night and climbed onto a rainwater tank. Somehow they fell inside. They were soon found but couldn't be resuscitated. The twins were being babysat by their grandparents.
It is a very unfortunate situation, and the loss of 2 little children like that, it's not good for any community, actually.
Grief counsellors are helping the family cope.
The ANZ Bank has apologised to 200,000 credit card holders after they were wrongly charged twice. The double-dipping glitch came as banks set a new record in fees, with much of the revenue coming from households.
Banks are making more money from the fees they charge us than ever before. That income topping more than $9.2 billion last year alone.
It's an extraordinarily large figure to be paying for banking in Australia. It's a significant amount of money.
Revenue from credit card fees has risen a staggering 112% in the past 3 years, last year earning a record $899 million, almost double the 202 figure. A recent independent survey showed that banking fees were costing the average Australian family $400 a year. The banks claim it's half that. Either way, consumers say they feel shortchanged.
They don't do anything for it. They make thousands of millions of dollars profit a year.
Each year I pay about $30 a month, so that's 12 times, that's about $400.
Never comes back to the customer, no, of course not.
It is the volume of banking transactions, not high fees, that are making banks richer.
The average price of bank transactions is now coming down.
But one bank, the ANZ, has been forced to admit it's been overcharging customers. 200,000 MasterCard users were wrongly charged a second time. The blunder took $45 million from customer accounts, all of it now refunded.
We would also like